I'm Jerome Hill. Welcome to the Hill of Justice. Today on the Hill of Justice, we are thrilled to have award-winning writer, director, and producer Nina Brooks. Nina is the founder of Real Film Media, a full-service production company with a mission to champion diversity and create powerful, authentic stories. She's best known for her work on The Lovers Lyfe, a television series inspired by her own life experiences, which highlights themes of resilience, love, and triumph. With a passion for storytelling that uplifts underrepresented voices, Nina has made a significant impact in both the Pittsburgh and LA film industries. She's here to share her journey, insights, and upcoming projects. Welcome, Nina. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having
So
me.
I want to ask you, are we going to use Nina Brooks or we're going to use Nina Perry?
Nina Brooks.
Let's go ahead and use Nina Brooks. Okay. Uh, the first question I have for you, especially for your show, The Lovers Lyfe, and when I know it's inspired by your own experiences as a single mother in Pittsburgh during the 1990s, how do you balance, telling this it's such a personal story while ensuring that it resonates with the wider audience?
I think that everyone can relate to my story, but keeping the balance between and that line that's drawn between personal and professional is not very difficult to do when you're telling your story authentically. Of course, you have to leave some things out, right? You don't share all. However,
Right.
I think it's important to share the most impactful points of interest of the story, such as pregnancy, which is a topic that we can all relate to. Teen pregnancy, which is very profound, often very controversial, but also is changing in terms of statistics and the number of teen pregnancies in the Black community. It is definitely has changed since the 90s. However, it does affect more people than you would think. And I think that teen pregnancy is a big topic that most parents are afraid of. And as teenagers are often afraid of. However, when we're met with, in reality, when we're actually met with the, what do I want to say? When we're actually met with the impact of being pregnant as a teenager, it's very difficult. So I thought that that was a story that needed to be told. I think that most of us can also relate to substance abuse, which is something that I had to experience as a child growing up with my mother. So dealing with cancer and losing her to cancer, and then, being on my own, those things I wanted to share because I think it's important to share your story so that you can inspire and uplift others. So when you tell it authentically, it's not that difficult to draw that line in the sand between what you share and what you keep.
Sure. When I think about, of course, that portion of your life, and you had to even dive into doing things that you would never do now. In fact, just to let the audience know, she is wildly successful as a computer scientist, software engineer, and so on and so forth. I mean, you really were able to get a couple of degrees since that humble beginning. Is that correct?
That is very correct. I had very humble beginnings. So after my mother passed away, I lived in the projects of East Hills in Pittsburgh. And I worked as an underage bartender. I lied about my age. I got a fake ID just so that I could work in the bar to earn money to help take care of my daughter. I also hustled. I hustled. I was in the streets heavy, but was under the radar. People would have never suspected the things that I was into in terms of the drug world because of the way that I looked and the way that I carried myself. And because of my upbringing, honestly, I always presented myself well so people would never suspect. Thank God I never had to do any jail time or anything like that.
Yeah.
And, after a couple of years of that, I was done with that. And, of course, moved on to finish my high school diploma by myself, and also push myself through college, as you mentioned. I have a couple of degrees. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Information Systems Management. I have a Master's of Science in Leadership and Technology, and I also have an MBA in Project Management. So, and I've spent a lot of years as a software engineer. But I think that was the thing that made me really want to tell my story, is to say, you don't have to stay here. You don't have to stay here. You might be here for a little while, right? Because at the end of the day, the world as we know it, it's really hard if you don't have the direction, if you don't have good parenting, and if you have a lack of resources in education. It's very, very difficult. And a lot of young women and men fall victim to the streets. And so you don't have to stay here, So for me, it was the promise that I made to my mother on her deathbed, that she didn't have to worry about me, that I would be successful in life, and that I would move forward, and that she wouldn't have that to worry about as she passed to the other side. And so you don't have to stay here. You don't.
And that's the redemptive quality that I love most about you. Naturally, when a lot of people are in those type of circumstances, tragedy begets tragedy. And unfortunately, you go down that slippery slope, and it's very hard coming back up. Your story resonates, and you're able to go ahead and tell it in some small way in the Lovers Lyfe, where you were able to show that real side, and then the resilience of breaking up from there, and really able to attain some of the dreams that you have, and really the consistency you have, because this is, just being a founder of Real Film Media, you're taking a big step as a full service production company. So, when you look at that, and we emphasize on diversity and transparency in your projects, can you share these values that kind of shaped over time, and how you produce partnerships, and what form do you go about doing that? Because your story personally really shapes how you've been able to deal with things professionally.
Sure. Networking is 90% of your success. And I think that being able to network is definitely what has helped me. I've been able to accomplish things in a very short amount of time that most people have not. As an independent filmmaker in a full service production company, you formulate your partnerships, number one, by networking. Number two, you gain opportunity by networking with people and just putting yourself out there and not really being afraid to do that. I take chances and risks by attending events, overseas events such as MIPCOM, attending a lot of mixers and film mixers, networking with people on Facebook, just reaching out to them. I remember one time I reached out to this amazing director. Her name is Tope Ocean. So I did a search on powerful Black female directors in the United States, and she was listed in the top 10. And I reached out to her on Instagram, and because social media is a very powerful networking tool. And I reached out to her on Instagram, and I sent her the link to the trailer, and I sent her the link to my website, and I, gave her this whole thing about who I am, what I'm trying to accomplish. This was about 6 years ago. And I couldn't believe it. She reached back out to me and said that she had been visiting in Houston, Texas. She would be there for a very short time, and if I wanted to come down and meet her, I could. And I jumped on the next flight down, and it cost me a mint, because it was a last minute flight, right?
Right.
But that was a risk that I took, and it was so worth it, because today she is not only a mentor for me, she is a friend, right? And she pointed me in the direction of MIPCOM, and she reached out to her contacts in Paris, and she said, "You really want to meet Nina Brooks? She's an independent filmmaker. She's this, she's that." And, is there any openings right now? And MIPCOM, by the way, is a huge platform for filmmakers all around the world. It's bigger than AFM, American Film Market. Okay. It's like American Film Market on steroids. And it is an amazing platform that you actually can reach out and touch studios. You can reach out and touch studio executives. You can reach out and touch agents and entertainment lawyers and promoters, people that you really would not be able to physically touch and speak to without representation. MIPCOM allows you to do that. So she pointed me in that direction. And there I formulated amazing relationships. And I learned so much about the business of film and media production, right? And how studio relationships are formulated and how you can collaborate with studios and other production companies to really get your film off the ground. I learned a lot about funding, which is really important, right? So being a filmmaker is one thing, but understanding the business that's involved behind filmmaking is a whole nother avenue. So being able to network, formulate those relationships, and really put yourself out there is how you get the exposure that is needed and how you land opportunities. I've been able to work on sets for BET. I've been able to work on sets for other independent filmmakers, and currently am working on a very prolific documentary for a filmmaker in Pittsburgh where Viola Davis is narrating, right? So I've gotten some opportunities just by networking, formulating relationships, and maintaining those relationships, which is really important.
Let's talk about, what I find, fascinating about you is the multifaceted way that you're able to work across both Pittsburgh, LA. I don't know if you've had some experience in Houston. These are very different, film industries in those locations. So how was your time in these cities, and how was it influenced your creative vision, and thus what unique opportunities have you found in each of these locations?
Well, the Lovers Lyfe was actually created in Houston while my husband, Chris, who's my business partner and co-creator of the Lovers Lyfe, while we were living in Houston, Texas, we created the Lovers Lyfe, and that's where we gave birth to it. I actually produced it virtually from Houston, Texas. We decided to film in Pittsburgh for several reasons, because we understand the lay of the land. It's cheap. The permits are cheap. The locations were not free, but we knew people there that would allow us to film in different locations and, different things like that. Pittsburgh shaped me because I went to the junior high school for the creative and performing arts. I also went to the high school for the creative and performing arts. So having that theater background and that film background, by going to auditions for films when I was young, being extras on set, being raised in the theater. I was raised in theater. So I understand the dynamics of behind the scenes and how it works very well. I also was a dance and drama minor at Kappa High School. So having that background definitely helped me a lot. I was also a professional model for a very long time. So being able to be in Pittsburgh and be shaped and formulated by the amount of creativity there is probably what has carried me throughout and continues to help carry me throughout my career. But I've gotten way more opportunity in Los Angeles than I ever have in my own hometown, which is crazy. But I've landed many more opportunities here than I have there. And I think that we have also created more opportunities than have ever been given for other filmmakers as well. Understanding the dynamics of putting a film together, whether it is a short film or a full feature film, or whether it's TV, there are so many different moving parts that are involved. You have to employ a lot of people in order to bring it together. As an independent filmmaker, sometimes you're 5 people in one. However, depending on the budget and scale of what you're trying to accomplish, you have the opportunity to bring more people on board. So I've got way more opportunity here, but I've created opportunities in Pittsburgh and generated a show while in Houston, but I also network heavy with the Houston Film Commission. Shout out to them. Shout out to the Pittsburgh Film Commission and Point Park College, or Point Park University. They have one of the best cinema schools in the country. And right. And then here in LA, just my network has been really, really strong here. So they're all very different. They all present very different opportunities, but I've landed more opportunities to work here than I have in other places.
I see. Now, Nina, this one question that I have is really, as a Black female filmmaker, how have you navigated the challenges of breaking into the film industry? And what advice would you give to other really voices that are unrepresented, looking to make their way into film? Because I think that's a significant point that we need to go ahead and touch on, especially as a Black female filmmaker.
I wrestle with this a lot, because not just being a woman of color in the film industry, being a Black filmmaker, but also being a woman, the film industry is dominated by men, just like the music industry is. There, and then in being a female director and producer, you will find more women who, there are a lot of us out there, but you find more women who want to be actresses, who want to be in front of the camera than behind the camera. The work is and I see why, because the work is hard. Hours can be very long, difficult. It can be an arduous task, right? So navigating as a woman and as a woman of color in the industry is very difficult. I've worked on sets where I've been the only person of color. I've worked on sets where I've had to work under white male directors who don't value what I have to say. But I've also worked on set with Black directors who value what I have to say. I've worked on set where I've been the director and I have to tell people what to do. And I've had to tell people, this is my set, you got to go, right? Because I have had to deal with some white male dynamic where they didn't want to listen to a Black female in a position of authority, right? So it's very difficult to navigate. And I think one of the things that the biggest message that I want to convey and keep conveying to anyone, any young person, old person, whatever age you are, a person of color who wants to navigate in this industry, is to network, maintain a good reputation with people, keep your nose clean, right? Don't be messy. Try your best to keep everything intact and keep your relationships intact and maintain relationships. It is the biggest thing that's going to carry you. And having someone champion you is also one thing that will help you in this industry, because it is very, very difficult being a female and being a person of color. So you kind of need to partner up with someone who's going to help you along and who's going to help champion for you, because it's hard. It is very hard. But I mean, I do the best I can and maintain who I am. I don't forget where I come from. I try to be humble, open, and authentic. But this industry is wild. People will take advantage of you. They'll use you. They'll lie to you. They'll tell you they can do things for you that they won't do. People won't pay you. I've encountered that.
Do tell.
Oh, I wrote a script. I wrote a script for someone, and it was for. Actually, I don't want to name the studio or the person, but the studio is huge, by the way. But I wrote it for someone who was pitching to this particular studio, right? They were pitching, I'll say it, they were pitching to Disney. And I wrote a script for them. They didn't pay me. So it navigating can be really, really difficult as an independent artist in this industry. That's why representation is so important. But how do we get representation, right? That's also a different avenue. We can slate that for a whole nother episode. Like, how do you get representation in the industry? That's a whole nother topic. But having representation is really important as well, because they help to protect you. They give you that layer of protection that you need. And they also help to open doors and walk you in doors as well. So doors that would be otherwise closed. Representation will do that for you. So it's been hard.
Nina, I'm going to put you on the spot, okay?
Sure.
And this is how I'm going to put you on the spot. Of course, you're multi-talented, but between writing, producing, and directing, what do you think is your strongest point?
I'm a writer.
Yeah, I think so too.
I didn't know I was a writer. My husband now, who's my boyfriend, then convinced me that I was a writer. I just sent him a text message and one day, and he said, "Where's the rest of it?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "The rest of it, share it with the world." And I said, "You mean like a book?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm not a writer." He said, "Yes, you are." And he sparked that creativity in me. And so I'm a writer. That's what I love to do.
You know, when I picked up the book, The Lovers Lyfe, it was incredibly well written. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I just enjoyed it tremendously. Now I want to get back to the film industry because, you know, you touched a little bit on it, how demanding, competitive, and really the underseedings of the very worst in human nature could come out, you know. So how do you maintain balance between your creative work and your personal life when you have to deal with all those type of stresses?
It's nothing compared to what I grew up with. Nothing. We're resilient as human beings, and you build resiliency by overcoming challenges. And that's what I've always been able to do in life, no matter what. And I really do believe, because I'm highly spiritual, I really do believe that my ancestors are the ones who have been helping to pay. They're all here with me now. That's what I believe. I believe that they are the ones that have been paving the way for me, opening doors for me, protecting me, and helping me maintain that balance. I'll tell you what is really, really difficult to do. Switch gears, be creative, right? And then switch and be logical. So you got to be, if I'm writing and then I got to jump on an engineering call and be logical and work with all of the powers that be in the engineering world, which is very white male dominated as well, which I've had to fight through as well in that field and gain the respect that I deserve in that field as well, which I've been doing for 17 years. Shifting gears is hard. You got to go from creative to logic, right? But the stress can be really, really high sometimes, and it definitely does take its toll. By lack of sleep, sometimes overeating, sometimes things like that to help you deal and cope with the stress. It can be a lot, but I will say, compared to what I grew up with, I don't think that there's anything else out there that can be as stressful, because you learn just to be resilient and you lean on your faith really hard and your loved ones who have passed on to the next life to help you through.
You know, I think that's a great point that you brought up, and I'm glad that you were able to share that with the audience.
Thank you.
One of the things I want to talk about is what type of projects are you involved with now, and what are some of your goals for Real Film Media? I've
been writing a script for 3 years, probably longer. Probably lying. It's probably more like 5 years that I've been writing it. But I've been writing a script, and I have a goal for a feature film. I'd like to finish this script. I would also like to turn Lovers Lyfe into a feature film because it's also been written as a feature. I would like to raise the funding for that. That's another goal that I have. So those are two things that are near and dear to my heart that I would really like to complete as a writer. I'd like to finish a script, and then I would like to see my feature film go into full fruition. I'm also working on a treatment for a short film that I recently wrote, produced, and directed with the help of Ime Alaquiva, Jasmine Lewis, and some others out there who were really helpful in mentoring me in directing. I wrote, directed, and produced my first short film as an independent filmmaker called The Passport, and I'm writing that as a treatment to also turn that into a feature film as well. So these are 3 projects that are mine that I'm currently working on. But I'm also working, as I said, on the Ebony Canal with Ime Alaquiva, which is his documentary that Viola Davis is currently narrating for. And we're pushing that in film festivals currently. I think that's it. Those are the goals that I have, but they're big goals, right? Because getting a feature film is not an easy task. Getting that off the ground, it's a lot of work. And it also takes a big budget to do. So, and also finishing a feature film script is also very difficult to do. So those are 2 major goals that I have in my line of sight to complete within the next 2 years.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out to the audience in particular how time intensive and stressful that type of life is. You try to put all those projects together and really be able to have it have like a life of its own, if you will, and then to get the support naturally. It is a very, 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 very arduous task. So my hat, I tip it off to you because I know how difficult that is.
Yeah.
Have you, Nina, have you thought about your legacy, particularly in filmmaking, in storytelling? I mean, is there something that you feel as though that you want to leave behind as a creative?
Yeah. I think about it all the time. I want to be one of the biggest names in filmmaking, but I want to be known for inspiring people. I want people to leave my set or leave a project with me saying, wow, it was great working with her. I want to work with her again. You know what I mean? Or, wow, I'm so inspired by her. She's in the second half of her life and look at what she's doing. Right. That's the legacy that I want to leave. I want, and success is viewed so many different ways. Often people look at success, they measure it by money. I don't. I measure success by the impact that I leave behind in life, what people think about me, what they say about me, how I've helped someone, what opportunities I've created, right? Because the world is round and the universe always gives back. So whatever you put out, you're sure to get back. That's the legacy that I want to leave. My karma bank, I like to always say that my karma bank is full, not empty. I say full because I believe that whatever we give, we also receive. So I'm always depositing into my karma bank, right? With the hopes that whatever I receive back will be tenfold. That is always my intention, not to get something back in return. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I like to know that if I give kindness, if I give opportunity, if I just smile at someone today, or I give someone a compliment, right? That act of kindness and the intent that has been behind it, which is pure, that same intent and that same pureness and those same results come back to me tenfold.
I really like how you set that up at the end because I believe in that also. So, I have so many more questions to ask you. We're running out of time at this point in time. But at this moment, I wanted to go ahead and thank you 100% for coming on today's episode of The Hill of Justice. Of course, I would love for you to come back. Can I get a commitment online that you'll come back?
I will come back.
Okay. Oh, that's
Thank you for
awesome.
having me. I really enjoyed it today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're super welcome. And you can pick up her book, The Lovers Lyfe, online on Amazon and other fine book retailers. I'm Jerome Hill. Thank you for subscribing and following. Until next time.